Hey! In today's video I am going to be separating some of my dreadlocks, and I'll explain why. First things first, are my dreadlocks completely mature? No, they're not. But the ones that I actually crochet hooked, which is instant locking, I did that on 3 dreadlocks, and 2 of those dreadlocks I actually want to separate because I did them a little too thick. And the reason I did them too thick is because before I actually started the instant locking process, those 2 dreadlocks actually were 4 dreadlocks, and they just so happened to be combined. And I noticed it while I was doing the instant locking method, and then I figured maybe it will slim up a little bit. But one thing you have to take into consideration, which I took into consideration as well, when you create a dreadlock, that dreadlock typically gets to the, I would say, width or the size of whatever that section is. So for instance, even though it might look, I'll show you guys really quickly, this one right here especially, even though it might look like it's, you know, pretty skinny and it will slim up, the thing is that this is not that much hair, and typically during a locking process, obviously it keeps compacting until it locks up to its full maturity. So with that being said, it keeps on getting thicker, and then after it gets to its full thickness, then it starts to slim up, you know, dealing with frizz and things like that. Like I said, it grows to the size of your section. So after I did the instant locks on those 3 dreadlocks, I knew right away I'm gonna have to do separation. So I knew this video was gonna end up happening, and yeah, I just want to do it now before those mature up even more, because obviously they are mature because I did instant locks, but obviously, like, as I was doing it, I knew that it was a little too thick. I noticed it even more after I actually finished them and looked at them. And like I said, this is something that can be fixed even if you've had dreadlocks for a while. This is a method that you can do in order to make your dreadlocks more skinny. And let me say something before we actually get into it. Don't do this if your dreadlocks are already skinny. Don't do it if you just want really skinny dreadlocks. You want to have a good section. Now, there is a lot that goes into it, like your hair type. The hair type, say you have a straighter hair type, you need a thicker section. Now, if you have a tighter curl pattern, then you can use smaller sections with that hair being actually strong. So in my case, I can go a little bit skinnier with my dreadlocks, and I can split those down the middle because they were 2 dreadlocks before I actually combined the 2. But without getting too technical, I want to actually show you guys how to properly do it. There is a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it, so I'm going to show you both of those ways. I'm obviously not going to do the wrong way. I'm just going to talk you through it because I don't want to like mess anything up. But I will say this, if your sections are too thick already and you barely started out your dreadlocks, say you've only had them for maybe 6 months or under a year, then separate them now versus waiting a little bit longer to see how they turn out. Because believe it or not, the way your dreadlocks look now is probably the skinniest they'll ever be, and then they thicken up over time. Like, they go through a thickening and shrinking process, so it's kind of like back and forth. But say for instance how these look right here. These will eventually thicken up just because it needs to shrink and get thicker to mature up. And to be honest, my hair is looking a little rough right now. So before we actually get into everything, I'm gonna go line my hair up really quickly, and then we'll get into separating. Now, after I've cleaned up my hairline, there is one tool I'm going to be using for the separating process. It's literally just a rat tail comb. I've seen other people use scissors during this process, but if you're not able to get through it just with this tool, then make sure to use scissors. Just be careful. And there are other videos out there that actually promote using scissors. Take precaution when it comes to actually doing this process, and if you're not comfortable doing it, don't do it. But hopefully this video brings comfort to you and actually how to do it. Alright, I'm really going to make this as simple as possible. I'm only going to be using this end of the comb. You can also use a Dreadlocks crochet hook if you would like as well. I just prefer this because it's smooth on the edge. Now, one thing you're initially going to want to do is go from the top and then like literally separate from the tip all the way down to the root. And you don't want to do that. The reason being is because you want to create the section at the root and then develop it from the root. start at the base and then work your way to the tip. Because if you experience any breakage, you're not going to just like rip your hair off. Then you just have a smaller section, or you have a big section and a small tip. What you want to do is you want to separate that section and then separate from the bottom up versus the top down. So let's go ahead and take this one. If your roots are twisted, which mine are, unravel them as best as possible. So you can see how, so this is it twisted. I want to unravel it, which I gotta go counterclockwise until the roots have a lot of play in them. And that's how you want your roots to actually be. So what you want to do now is you want to actually split it evenly. Say if you're doing 2, which I am, so I'll show you guys what that looks like. Now keep in mind, this is a big pointer that a lot of people might skip over. If you've interlocked your dreadlocks, like if you've ever interlocked them at all, this process is going to be tough because an interlock is different than, if you use the crochet hook or if you allow it to naturally lock up with using twisting with gel. Because if you start to, separate that root and then pull it, it's going to stop at the interlock. It's still possible to keep it. You just need scissors at that point. So yeah, you might want to watch one of those videos if you've done interlocking, but this is more for like people who are like me, who just recently started their dreadlocks. Unraveled, found where I want the sections to be. I want to take my rat tail comb, go through the root down the middle, and like I said guys, you're creating the section here. So now that I got my section, you want to put your finger where your comb is. Make sure it's even. And now what you want to do, it may seem weird, and trust me, it might even feel weird. What you want to do now is you want to just start separating from the bottom up. You'll hear a little bit of popping, and that's completely normal. I didn't want to have to do this, but my hair is actually really locked up right there. It's super mature, and it's literally like fully mature right at that spot. So I'm gonna have to result in using scissors. So if you've had your dreadlocks or if you've done crochet hooking, you're gonna need scissors in order for it to be a smooth process. Just do it properly. I'll show you guys how to do it. It's something that I wanted to avoid, but then this is something that I'm learning along with you guys. So aren't you guys glad that you have me to be able to show you and learn for myself so I can teach you guys? Let me go grab some scissors. I'm going to be using these little snips right here. Now if you don't have shears, like you can use any scissors you want. I just prefer like smaller ones so that I can get in there. Alright, now is the moment of the truth. So my section is still there. What you want to do is you want to take your scissors and your section that you have. Obviously it's going to be easier if you do it in a mirror, but you want to go straight in. And now I'm in the middle of that section. And now the goal is to follow it up the middle. You don't want to cut across because then you're going to cut the dreadlock off. So you see how I'm in there? Just go slowly. You don't want to cause any issues. And what I'm doing is I'm flattening out the dreadlock as well as I'm going up. It allows me to cut even versus like kind of just filling around. Now that I got past, I feel like the initial lock, I feel like it should be easy to just separate my finger because you guys can see that I have this section now of separation. And yeah, so it is actually easy now. So now I have this dreadlock right here and then I have this one right here. And they're both equal thickness. And the biggest thing is just making sure that your roots are healthy. That's why it's really good to actually start from the root and the base of the dreadlock versus starting at the tip and then going down. But I mean, those look like a whole lot better. Like you guys can see, it almost makes the hair appear longer. But here we go. This is afterward. It just looks so much better too. One thing that you have to know with dreadlocks, as they mature, they get thicker. And like I mentioned earlier, after they get thicker, they grow a little bit skinnier, but they usually stick to the minimum and the maximum of your actual section. Now I'm going to double check really quick if I'm going to actually separate this third one. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and separate this one as well. So same rules apply, just doing the same process, getting my comb. And the reason I'm not doing this third one down here is because it's already, I built it skinny, so it was already skinny. It was a single dreadlock. It wasn't combined beforehand, so everything's good to go there. And since you are using scissors, just be careful not to nick any other neighboring dreadlocks. I feel like this one's gonna be a little bit easier. So I created the section. And always fill your sections, like base the separation off of the sections that you have just recreated. If they don't feel strong enough to withstand being on their own, then you have to re-section it. So this feels good. So what I'm gonna do, same thing, thread the scissors through. And now that you have your sections, like literally that's the most important part. So now you just work your way to the tip. And I feel like this is one of those things that you might feel that you're gonna get comfortable with, but I would say not to get comfortable while you're doing it because you're still dealing with, dreadlocks that are going to be there after you cut it. So after you cut it, that's how it's gonna be. Now that I got to the end to where I feel like I can start to actually just separate with my fingers, Boom, just like that, separated. Then I just do like a light retwist afterward. One thing to keep in mind is that all of the dead hair that was actually on the tip kind of just pulled out. Completely normal, so don't freak out. Because essentially what happens is your hair constantly will fall out having dreadlocks. I mean, anybody's hair in general. That's why when you comb out your dreadlocks, like if you guys have ever seen my comb out video, you've seen me combing out all my hair, but then there's a bunch of hair afterward. Or I would say some of that is breakage, but a majority of that is just hair that has fallen out over time, but it's just stayed inside my hair because of being in dreadlocks. So keep that in mind. But now I have these two separate dreadlocks right here. So yeah, just made them skinnier. So yeah, follow that tutorial, use a mirror, and if it is possible, say you've had your dreadlocks not too long and you've only done twisting with gel, it's going to be very easy to separate. Say if I wanted to separate one of these, obviously they're not fully mature, so I can just literally go in with my fingers and separate them. But be careful when you're using the scissors. You don't want to cut any hair that you don't want to actually cut. All you're doing is literally separating, or I would say splitting the dreadlock down the middle. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked on how these turned out. Let me show you. Boom, there's one of the first ones. There's another one right here. And yeah, just overall, I mean, it just feels a whole lot better. They're not just like very clumpy dreadlocks right there. It was just very inconsistent with the rest of my dreadlocks that I have going. Here's a close-up of that whole section that I just did. I'm really stoked on how it turned out because they're all actually the same size now with my other dreadlocks that I'm starting. It's pretty cool because they appear longer. I'm not sure why that seems that way. I guess it does make sense with it being skinnier. It may just appear longer. Well, you guys, that is today's video. Hopefully you guys learned a lot from today's video. I learned a lot as well. You guys can see how this is literally kind of the process of what I'm going through, of actually starting dreadlocks or just learning as I go. And I bring it to you guys so that you guys can know it as well. And that's literally just what I do. I make videos so that you guys don't have to struggle with your dreadlocks or struggle with how to actually create them and have them the way that you want them to be. Even if it does consist of making sacrifices with whatever I'm doing with my hair, I just know that there's certain things that I've learned over time that I'm like, man, this would have been so easy when I started out my dreadlocks. But you guys, that's today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully you guys do have an amazing day. Matter of fact, have a great day. Peace and God bless.